Councilman and let them say a couple words. So please give a warm welcome to your Councilman, Scott Rakos.
Thank you. Like the major project we had this year was Hessville Park, and Mark and our engineers have made a little presentation over there. If it's okay, if we can.
Sure, thanks, Scott. We have a short little quick presentation, just as a summary. As Councilman Rakos mentioned, one of the big projects in this district last year, or actually the last couple of years, I guess, was the remodel of Hessville Park. SEH put our slideshow together here, if it works. Help me here, Chris. Oh, I'm not working. Okay. Here, you want to take that? Oh, sorry about that. Okay, well, we will summarize as we figure out some of our technical difficulties there. But as many of you know, the free interactive water feature for cooling off, spectator enjoyment, we opened that this past year. We actually opened that, and our last day that we had it open this year was October 1st, which was pretty amazing considering replacing pools and so forth, the season that we would have normally run to. So that and actually in the future we'll probably even stay open longer than that. Making sure we winterize it and getting it ready. We're likely to open this coming in 2020 in middle of April, very likely. But as you can see, the design process that we went through, there was a lot of input from the community. It very much showed up that way. The construction phase, we went through various different things. One of the things that I always like to show is this particular screen, some of these pictures. The underground piping that's out there is incredible. Looks like spaghetti when you're out there. So it is very impressive to see the underground work that went in for the splash pad out there in particular. A lot of the construction that happened as well. Some more shots there. Additional. Playground, we put in the rubber port-in-place surfacing underneath the playground area as a safety thing, and then as well as so we don't have to constantly replace the wood chips and deal with the weeds that are routine in wood chipped areas and playgrounds throughout the city. So that's definitely something that we did here. The skate park that went in, something that's very unique in our city. It's our first concrete skate park. Really provides a variety of street and transition elements for areas of beginners as well as the more advanced. So as far as the park amenities, again, our big highlights, some of the general benches, bike racks, our lighting out there, picnic tables, shade structure on a hot day. That shade structure there on the bottom right was the first seats to go in the park. The new shelter that we have as well, the new washroom building. That washroom building also doubles as our pump house for the facility. And then some of the entrances that we have, the brick columns around the water feature, the playground, as I mentioned, the port-in-place surfacing, the landscaping. And then the lively fun parts, the active area, the skate park, as we mentioned earlier, the interactive water feature, as I like to call it, that was routinely busy all summer long, as you can see from some of the smiling faces here in the slideshow. And then, of course, from the view, the high-up view, it's a little different perspective to see it from some different angles that really show the attraction to the feature itself. Besides the people who are using it getting wet, you also have the people who are there surrounding it and taking advantage of just the scenery of being in the park and enjoying something out there. Something that a lot of people haven't worked on and seen, it is designed to have lights. This is something that the park board and I continue to work on to deal with the challenge that we have of operating it in the evening when parks are closed. So this is something that we are working on to try to figure out where we can have it as an opportunity to get out there and enjoy it in the hot summer months where you can get out there and have people into the evening into the park attraction. So with that, I'll turn it back to Councilman Rakos. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Actually, it was October 2nd because I had both of my grandkids there. It was 90 degrees. They had a great time at that park up to the last day. I spent a lot of time when it first opened, it didn't hit 70 for the first week or two, and there were still a lot of kids there. I'm very proud of it. I thank the mayor and the park board and everybody for that coming to vision.
And Scott, can I just add too? I know, just so I don't forget and you don't forget, I know also, just so everyone's aware, Councilman Werpel also helped participate in those improvements.
Yes, he did.
Since it's on the edge of that district, I think it's important to point that out.
All right, just since we already had this, I'll just be real brief. We've been doing a lot with trees in my district. We started out with 99. There were trees that were 80% or more dead. That worked out as we made our way around it, almost up to 130. As of 2 weeks ago, 74 were done, and they've been working real hard in the last 3 weeks, so they're pretty close to all of them. 167 trees have been planted, and we have another planting coming at Gibson Park this Saturday from 9 to 12. Must have like 90 of them in Hessville Park now. They've been planting in the parks very consistently, and that's something new that I was able to do. We're still waiting for NIPSCO to get our street lights done. The ones were done this year already in Martha, Alabama, Ohio, and Rhode Island. Should be any day, NIPSCO keeps telling me. We also have Tennessee from 163rd to 167th, and Carolina from 65th to 169th. Will also be done between now and the end of the year, hopefully a lot quicker than our first projects were done. But the only other thing, we did a lot of things in Hessville Park. We even had a movie in the park this year, well attended. We see a lot of things going into that park. There's going to be 2 different things coming up. For the adults, we have a zombie crawl October 19th at 5:30. That's this Saturday. They're meeting at American Legion. That's a big thing for the adults that like to go to the bars. It's a different kind of bar crawl. But there's also an old-fashioned Halloween at the Little Red Schoolhouse, October 25th at 5:30 for the kids. So hope you come out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And thank you, Mark, for the presentation. Love Hessville Park. It looks wonderful. One of the cool things about having a water feature as opposed to the pool is, what the councilman was pointing out earlier, is during the month of late August through September, the kids are out there using it. And if we had the pool, we would have to shut the pool down a lot of times because the weather's still not great, but mostly because we lose all of our workers. All of our workers go back to school, and we were sort of screwed during some of the nicer times of the year as far as manpower is concerned. So it's one of the things I do like about the splash pad. So thank you very much, Councilman Rakos. Let's go ahead and get started. How you doing, Sharon?
Good evening, Mayor.
Nice to see you. And we got Donna. Where's Donna? In the back. Hi, Donna.
Back in the back, Mayor.
Remind you, everybody in here, that Mayor's Night Out is generated by the written question. And I got Eva in the back corner. She has questionnaires, so please fill out your questions. We read them all. If you don't want your name mentioned, that's fine. No problem at all. We do like to get your name and address if it's possible so we can respond to you. We usually follow up your questions and send you a letter and let you know how it was resolved or why it wasn't resolved. But if you don't want to leave your name, that's fine also. So we'll go ahead and start getting, how many questions do we have filled out so
We
far?
have about 13 right now.
Nice. So we got a good start. Let's go ahead and introduce the department heads.
Sharon Daniels, Personnel and College Bound.
Awana Miller, Community Development.
Jaime Prieto, Code Enforcement.
Ed Crusoe, Hammond Waterworks.
Joe Medwitz, Public Works.
Kelly Kearney, Inspections Department.
Marty Wolgas, Hammond Sanitary District.
Jack Smith, Sewer Maintenance.
Matt Muta, Hammond Sanitary District.
Jeff Smith, Fire Department.
Mylon Krasinski, Port Authority.
Heather Gray, City Controller.
Africa Tarver, Planning and Development.
John Doty, Police Department.
Scott Rakos, 6th District Council.
Dean Button, Engineering.
Brian Poland, City Planning.
Ron Novak, Environmental Management.
Dennis Radowski, United Neighborhoods, Inc.
Bob Vale, Building Department.
Ann Anderson, Economic Development.
Mark Heinz, Parks and Recreation.
Chris Campbell, Information Technology.
All right, there we go. Those are the department heads. They're here to bail me out whenever you ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, which is nice. So anyway, I want to go ahead and start off by recognizing the elected officials and thanking them for being in attendance. I want to start off with our council people who are on the ballot in a couple weeks, and I wanted to remind everybody, please get out and vote. You can vote now. I've already voted, actually, or you can wait till Election Day. If you want to vote early before Election Day, you can go to any of the county courthouses. I go to downtown Hammond, but you can go to Wicker Park, you can go to East Chicago, Gary, Crown Point. You can go any of the satellite courthouses throughout the county. You could vote in Crown Point. You could vote the Hammond ballot. You can go to Gary if you work there and vote the Hammond ballot. You just pull up your precinct and you vote. So I've already voted. A lot of people do take advantage of early voting, but if you wait till Election Day, which is a lot of people are traditionalists, you'll have to go to your precinct. So make sure you know where you're going. Some of those precincts have been eliminated. But the important races, municipal, I'd like to think municipal races are very important, and I know that I'm not contested, and another very popular person, Clerk Golick's not contested, and I want to, first off, thank you very much, Clerk Golick. Good to see you, sir. But that scares me when you see citywide candidates uncontested, because sometimes that doesn't give people, the encouragement they need to go out and vote. So we want to make sure everybody gets out and votes. We have great candidates. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Janet Venez, Councilwoman at Large. Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Hammond's Council President, Robert Markovich. Thank you very much, Bob. Hammond's Councilman at Large, Dan Spitali. Thank you very much, Dan. Hammond's 1st District is the far north, and it's good to see the 1st District Councilman here, Mark Kowinski. Thank you very much, Councilman. Hammond's State Representative, Carolyn Jackson. Thank you very much, Representative. Of course, your 6th District Councilman, Scott Rakos. I don't see anybody else. All right, if they walk in, I'll introduce them. Thank you guys very much for showing up. And we're going to start off with a presentation. I walked in and I saw 4 police officers here. I said Andy, 5 police officers with the chief. And I said either there's some security threat we don't know about, or we're doing an award ceremony. And thankfully it's an award ceremony, so I'm going to hand the microphone off to Chief John Doty. Let's give him a warm welcome, everybody.
We have We started a new program early this year where we give the officers coins out as well when they do a great job for us, and as well as just a letter when they go above and beyond in their duties. Just a little more than a pat on the back, we think, and it goes on a wall in our police department, so it's memorialized there, and something that maybe their children or their grandchildren can come and see later. We're very proud of that. Please stop by the station and see that sometime as it grows. It'll be growing because they do a lot of great things all the time, so we're always putting something up there. We have 3 officers here tonight. We're going to start off with 2 that saved someone's life. Can Simon come up here, please? And Lindsay. So Simon Seba and Lindsay Fritz. They responded to a call, 7200 or 7600, I'm sorry, Van Buren. And we had a subject there that was shot both in the arm and the leg, and they carry tourniquets on their belts now. It's a new issue, something we've been doing for a couple of years now. We issued them to the officers like the military, intending them to save their own life or their partner's life. Well, what has happened, I can't tell you how many lives we've saved of civilians, Hammond residents, involved in car accidents, shootings, or any other incidents. I don't believe we've used one yet on an officer. We've just used them on others. And so it's a wonderful tool on the belt to have. So they came on the shooting, one applied to the arm and one applied to the leg, so we used both of them that night. Just a few days after that, not long, Lindsay went on another call, and she was a stabbing victim, and she used a freshly replenished tourniquet on that victim. So we give her 2 and Simon 1, and we're very appreciative and very proud of you both. Thank you. Sergeant Chris Howard, come up, please. Chris has been around a long time compared to, not as long as I have, but longer than the other officers that just came up. But one thing about Chris, he's a great all-around guy, all-around police officer, always doing his job, goes out every day, and he's a friendly guy. He sells to the police department, to the community every day, which is one thing we love our officers to do, and he does it naturally from his heart. If you have a chance to get to know Chris, please do. He's just a good soul. So a while back, he decides he's also a school resource officer, so he's very involved with the kids. And there's a guy that wants to invite his girl out to the prom. So they get a little conspiracy theory going where they're going to do a traffic stop, And Chris pulls them over, and basically they set the stage for a very unusual prom date asking. So, which worked out, fortunately for the guy. The girl did not say no, so it worked out for everybody. And everybody walked away really happy, but that made social media on its own, in no part of ours, and it was a nice way for the Hammond Police Department to be showcased through one of his officers, just out doing something nice, and it came back and brought blessings to our department. So we're very appreciative of that. Every day what you do, and that in particular. Thank you.
That's really nice, JD. I think it's really great when you recognize the hardworking men and women at Hammond Police Department. One more time for everybody, guys. Okay, let's jump in. We like to try to keep it on topic. So let's say you ask a question about what's going on with crime in Hessville. We want to try to stay on topic. So we read the written question, we try to answer it. If you have follow-ups, go ahead and raise your hand if we're talking about that topic, and we'll just go ahead. If you have another topic, we just ask that you fill out a questionnaire, okay? We read everything. Some of them are nice, some of them are mean. We read them all, and that's why people watch and come to Mayor's Night Out. So let's go ahead and get started. Start off with an easy one, though.
Okay, I'm going to start out with College Bound, Mayor.
There you go. Perfect.
And Sharon has a mic, so if she needs to answer.
Okay.
The College Bound program has helped many Hammond students afford to pursue college educations. However, many students decide to leave Hammond after completing their degrees. What is the city doing to encourage students to remain in Hammond after completing their degree?
Great question. This is something, when we were designing College Bound, that was discussed, was when I worked for a company before I went to law school, and the company I worked for required that if you went undergrad at that company and they paid you to go undergrad at that company, you had to do a certain amount of time afterwards, guaranteed, or else you had to pay all the money back. So I took that same knowledge into the College Bound negotiations, and we talked about it, about whether or not the student had to move back, and at least for a couple of years. And we went round and round about that issue, and it ended up, there was somebody early on that was accepted to a job in NASA, and I was thinking, what if somebody gets a great job, and they can't take that great job right out of college because we have this requirement in there? Obviously, we want them to live in Hammond. Obviously, the parents live in Hammond. They have to, or else the kid couldn't get the scholarship in the first place. I think that in itself is a natural draw, but there is nothing in College Bound that requires the student to live in Hammond after the program is done. That's a true statement. And it was talked about, we went back and forth on it, and we thought it was in the best interest of the student to let them pursue a job at NASA if they got one. Hopefully they move back. Now, I think the city's done their part in recruiting students out of the College Bound program. We do. We like to hire College Bound students. We get to meet them through the process. And, so we try to do our part, but there is no requirement. Sharon, could you add a little? Sharon's personnel director for the city, and she's also the College Bound coordinator. And she lives like right down the street. I'm sure she walked here. She's so close, right?
Sure, because it's
Right.
not that cold out. As Mayor said, there is no requirement that the student has to come back to Hammond, but we do have opportunities where we get to meet the students. They come to work for the city. They do their community service hours with us. Some of them have been hired by the city. Some of them have met other business owners through the city, and they have, stayed in Hammond. I know personally, I had 4 children actually come here to Morton. Many of their friends have gone through the program and have bought homes in Hammond. So there is no requirement, but we do see that they do return back home.
Right. How many department heads here have College Bound students either interning for you or working for you? All right, we do our part. It's decent. It's one of those, when I was in law school, that they taught you in trial advocacy, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I had no idea if that was going to turn out well or not, so I'm decently surprised. But we try to do our part. I think it's a fair question about the program. It was discussed. We just made a decision. So I don't know if that makes you happy or not, but if there's any follow-up questions on College Bound, we're more than willing to answer them. Yeah, hi. We got one coming over to you. By the way, we're on microphone, not because I can't hear you, because they can't hear you on the TV if they're watching. This is being aired live on Go Hammond TV. So, hi.
I hope somebody didn't say this already, but
It's okay.
would preference be given to those students who graduate because of the college bound? So if there's competition for certain jobs, would the college bound get the job most likely then?
Yes,
Or-
ma'am. There's certain jobs you have to have there's certain jobs you have to have a college degree for. And then there's a lot of our jobs you don't. But if somebody, for instance, wanted to be a police officer, that's definitely part of the application process if you have a degree, right? Does it bump you up? Bumps you up a point. How about in the fire department, Chief Smith? Does it give you, I know, when I hire, it's just a natural type of, if somebody has a degree and another person doesn't, I would mentally boost them. Sure.
But if there are two people who have degrees applying for the same job, would the college-bound one have preference over that possibly since some investment was made in it to begin with?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm near and dear to college bound myself, but let's say we have students that turn down a college bound scholarship so that they can pursue a sports career in another state, They could still come back and get college bound, but I would hate to discriminate against a kid that played high school football or high school basketball and then came back to Hammond to try to get a job. But I get what you're coming from, and I'm biased towards Hammond, you know that. It's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. I hear a lot of criticism about me around Northwest Indiana, and one of the big criticisms I hear is, you're all about Hammond. You never think about anything else. I'm not going to apologize to my residents about that. I think that's a good complaint to hear. That's what I'm supposed to do. So anyway, I appreciate the question, ma'am. Any other questions about college bound? All right, thank you very much.
Okay, next up, Mayor, Fire Department.
All right.
Will Hammond residents be given free smoke detectors paid for by federal funds like the other nearby municipalities?
Good question.
There is a program with the state fire marshal's office. Actually, we've been installing them for the last week now. That you have to go to the state fire marshal's website to apply. They send it to us, and then once we get it, we contact you, and we will come out and put them in. But as far as us, the city, or the fire department giving away free smoke detectors, we give them away sometimes, like at doings, like we had our open house recently, we raffled some off. There's some of the Crime Watch meetings. I know one of our guys just talked to me today. He's going to take a couple to raffle some off at the next one. So as far as us giving them away, no. But the state fire marshal has a program where you can sign up and they will send it to you. They also have some for the hearing impaired. It's called a bed shaker. It attaches to the leg of the bed, plugs it into the wall, because if you can't hear, so at least it'll wake you up in the middle of the night. So, but as far as us, no, we don't. But the state fire marshal does.
Thanks, Jeff. Any follow-up questions on that? Hi. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, that was my question, because I saw an article in the Northwest Times where Griffith and some other municipalities nearby. Is there, do you know the website address?
I don't, but if you want, I'll give you my card. If you want to call my office in the morning, I'll get it for you. I know it's through the state of Indiana. If you could go to in.gov, you could probably navigate your way to the state fire marshal's section in the website.
And is there a limit to how many per household? Some houses are bigger than others.
I recommend putting one on every floor. Like, don't put it in the kitchen, put it in the hallway. Don't put it in, you could put one in every bedroom, but if you put one in the hallway of leading into your bedrooms is recommended. But don't put it in the kitchen, because, if you cook like me, it'll go off every 5 minutes, so.
Also, do you do any kind of safety inspections of homes? Because it seemed like that was also part of the other firemen's volunteer efforts.
We do, well, code enforcement does, when they do the rental inspections, if you're a landlords are supposed to have smoke detectors in every rental property. We can't really enforce a homeowner to put a smoke detector in your house.
Do people ever call up and get voluntary inspections? Like if I wanted fire department to look at my house?
Nobody ever has.
Well, I mean, we have an inspection department. They're good, right? If you wanted us to do something like that, I think we can probably accommodate you. But it doesn't happen very often, is what the chief's saying.
Okay, I just thought it was a great idea I saw in the paper. And
Yeah.
so then my last question is, if, I'm asking for both my parents and myself. So myself, I have a rental property. If my landlord hasn't provided those, do I call code enforcement?
You have a rental property, or you live in a rental property?
lives in a rental.
I live in one.
You live in one?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Absolutely. If you want to see me after, I was going to say after the show. If you want to see me after the meeting, I'll get your information and you know, we can talk.
What was your name again?
My name's Jaime.
Jaime, in charge of code enforcement. Was that your question originally, ma'am? If your name's on there, we can make sure it's earmarked to Jaime. Okay, well, we'll follow it up.
If you have questions, I just put the other page.
Okay, well, okay, thank you very much. All right, great, there we go. We're off and running.
Okay, Mayor, what is the status of Griffith joining us?
I'm not sure.
Could this be the township thing?
I imagine it's a township issue, unless they were planning on joining the city of Hammond. I didn't know about it. I think it's the township issue, which is going to be decided, just to give you, a lot of times I find I'm like a signal, like a tour guide, saying this is, you're going to the wrong place, this is where you want to go. We get that a lot in City Hall. But in this case, this is a question that's going to be determined by Trustee Frank Mervan and his board of 3 members, Lisa Matanovich, Peter Kadick, and Rich Novak. East Chicago, Hammond, and Highland. Actually, 3 different residents are going to decide, along with Frank Mervan, who went to Morton High School, and now he lives in Highland. Anyway. They're going to decide whether or not Griffith joins Calumet Township, or whether Griffith goes alone, or whether Griffith ends up in St. John Township. The thing going on, it's like a divorce between Calumet Township and Griffith, where they want to disassociate themselves from Calumet Township, and they need to find a home. But they do have the option of going alone, and that is definitely on the table, last I heard. But I know that Hammond and Griffith, we have a good relationship. They get water from us. They give us their wastewater. We have gotten to be very good friends with them. Marty Wilgus, head of the sanitary district, negotiated a contract with Rick Rifa, he's the council president, but for all intents and purposes, he's the mayor of Griffith. They don't have a mayor there, and we have a great relationship. So I think Griffith and Hammond have a lot of similar characteristics. If they wanted to be part of the township, I think it'd be a good move. Originally, we were opposed to this. I was opposed to it originally because it was literally right in the middle of the Christmas holidays. It got dropped on our lap, and they said, you need to decide by Christmas. And, you know, it didn't work in that time frame. But since then, a bill was passed to give Griffith another year, and they're still deciding. So I think that's a pretty good update on where that is, but I am not privy to any of the recent, happenings of what's going on with that issue. So, yes, ma'am. Here comes the microphone. You can go ahead and start.
I can project my voice.
I can too.
That was also my question, and I had read an article. I really like the Northwest Times for its coverage of local issues.
Yeah.
And it had had a big headline that said, now you're in favor.
Yeah.
Of them potentially joining us. So
I had lunch with Rick Rifa, and it made the paper. But I had lunch with him, and he was showing me some issues, and I said, Rick, I think it's a great idea, but I'm not Trustee Frank, or I'm not on the board. I could tell our representatives there that we're in favor of it, if we are.
Yeah, well, I really like Frank Mervan, but just very briefly, what were your pros and cons about them joining?
It's not really our decision, though, ma'am. That's the thing.
I understand.
My con initially was, what the heck? You're like dropping this on our lap during the Christmas holiday, and we have to make a quick decision. I hate that. I feel like there's something we're not going to properly research, and then we're all going to suffer the consequences because we made a quick decision. So initially I was like, hey, I'm Christmas shopping for my family. We're trying to run a city, and then you're dropping this ultimatum on us at the last second. So initially we were like, come back and talk to us later. And then the more I talked to Rick Rifa about it, the more I became convinced it was a good marriage, but it's not our decision though. So thanks, ma'am. Any other follow-up on this? All right, thank you.
Mayor, this one's for you.
Uh-oh.
Why do you get angry and demonize people, even the public, if we disagree with you?
Is that from Marissa? It's probably one of my
She didn't
department
say.
heads. Which one of you guys did that? I apologize if that's the way I come off. I sort of pride myself on trying to be real and not be fake, and I try to be authentic, and sometimes I get mad, and sometimes I'm super happy, and sometimes I'm really depressed, and I don't really show it very well. I used to play poker with a bunch of people, and I always lost. It's because they could tell every time if I was bluffing or because I don't hide my emotions very well. So I apologize if whoever wrote that question. I'll try to do better. But on my radio show, I want to point something out also, okay? I think it's a great radio show. Part of having a radio show is having an audience, and part of getting an audience is being interesting. So I try to be interesting, and sometimes I push the envelope a little. Sometimes I'm doing it because I'm on the radio show. It doesn't mean I'm not telling the truth. It means maybe I'm pushing the envelope a little because I like people when they listen. And we put good information out about our city on that radio show also. And Kevin does his best to try to rein me in, but sometimes I listen to Howard Stern every day. I think he's a genius, and I love his radio show, and sometimes it's a little over the top, but he is so authentic. I think he's made a whole career out of that, and I sort of take the same attitude when Kevin and I are on the radio. Kevin definitely tries to rein me in, but I think sometimes we're pushing the envelope. But I apologize if I have offended you. I certainly don't want to offend Hammond residents. That's not my job. My job is to make you happy, and that's what I try to do. So I apologize. Kevin, you want to add to that, please? This is why I have the department heads here. They can mop up for me.
Yeah, I'm happy to add to that, Mayor. I think one of the things about knowing you for so long, like so many of your department heads do, we've been around a long time, is that you do tell it like it is. And I think everybody knows that when you're not happy with them, they know. And when you're happy with them, they know. And here's a kind of a funny story. Long time ago, and this goes back probably a dozen years, maybe 10 to 12 years, when Facebook just started and Twitter just started. And if it was once, it was 100 times, people down in Indianapolis that either lobby for the mayor or the city or, try to get things done for us downstate would call and say, they'd call me because they didn't want to call the mayor. And they'd say, you got to get him off Facebook. You've got to get him off Twitter. You got to stop him. I said, he wants to communicate, and the reason was at the time was he didn't feel he was getting a fair shake from the newspaper. If the newspaper controls the news and what gets out, that's what you get to read and hear. The mayor thought, look, I'm not getting this side of the story told, and if they're not going to tell it, I need to tell it. And over time, as you can tell, Twitter and Facebook have caught on, and the mayor kind of was a forerunner of, I guess the tweeter-in-chief, but...
And Trump is the president now, and I'm still in City Hall. So.
Yes, you are, but and you're still tweeting and Facebooking. So, I guess that I tell that story really as a, to engender him to you because he really is who he says he is, and as much as I try to rein him in, I say this a million times, he's the toughest client I have, and that's, I say that with gratitude, though, so.
Thanks. I'm going to look straight ahead while I ask this question, okay? How many people on this stage, the people that work with me, have gotten a crappy text message from me? I'm looking straight ahead. I'm like, the blinders on, okay. All right, put your hands down, please. I am a good boss, I think. I am supposed to run the city, and if something's wrong, I'm supposed to fix it. And I give a total accountability to my department heads, and if there's something wrong in their department, I will call them out on it. That's what I do. I'm not like crazy. I'm not going to fire you or something over that, right? But I will let you know there's something wrong. This is on you. This is your part of the ship. I was in the Navy. This is your part of the ship, and it's screwed up. You got to fix it. And I'm not super nice sometimes. Sometimes I have to be a hard mayor, and I think it's accountability. When you go to work, I guarantee you, a lot of people in this room go to work and they have a tough boss. I'm not a tough, unfair boss, but I'm not an easy boss either. So I think that's part of the reason I'm still here, because we do an honest day's work when we go to work. And if you have a problem, it's our job to fix it. So I apologize if I offend people, though. And I know sometimes I do, and I apologize. And by the way, my wife listens to the radio show also, and when I get home, she lets me have it sometimes too, for the record. So. Hi, Councilwoman.
Hi, Mayor.
Did you raise your hand also?
Yes, I did.
I was looking straight ahead.
I would just like to say, not to defend you, but everybody who works for the city works very hard to make Hammond a better place to live, and we all do our jobs well, and we work hard. And it's very difficult sometimes when There are people who flat out lie about you, that they criticize things that we have no control over. And that's very frustrating sometimes. And we are here to work for the city, work for each and every one of the residents here in the city, and we all do our level best. And it's difficult sometimes when people, as I said, flat out lie.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Councilwoman. By the way, while we're over here, I wanted to recognize a young lady that's on the ballot. She's running for Councilwoman at large, Katrina Alexander. Hi, Katrina. I think her dinner is tomorrow, is it? Your big dinner? No, next week. She was recognized by the Times newspaper as 20 under 40, one of the 20 talented under 40-year-olds in Northwest Indiana. So congratulations, Katrina. Does anybody want to follow up on the question about me being mean? All right, let's move on. Thank you.
Well, how about this, Mayor?
All right.
Are you secretly planning to run for congressional representative?
Oh,
in
come on.
Pete Visconti's seat?
These
And
are
it's
the
not from a department head.
What was the question? Am I secretly planning on running?
Against
About the
Pete.
newspaper article this morning? I went to work yesterday, and I had a FOIA request from Congressman Pete Visconti's campaign team that is asking for records, which is fine. Everybody has the right to ask for records, but we're talking thousands of pages of documents that we have to assemble for his campaign team, and his campaign team has millions of dollars at their avail. And Heather, could you grab a microphone? Because thankfully for the mayor's office, most of it's going to fall on Heather's department. So Heather, I don't know, I know you took a look at the FOIA request we got from Congressman Pete.
I received 2 separate ones hand-delivered in addition to the one that you received. So
Right.
there's a laundry list of records they are requesting. It is going to take us some time. They're going back several, well, some of them 15
years, yeah.
So as you would know, a lot of those records are up in storage, and it's just a task. But we receive these requests routinely, not usually of this magnitude.
Nope.
But it'll
Not
take
usually
us some
from a
time.
fellow elected official either.
That's correct.
That was a weird thing to walk into work and see that. And they left an envelope just to say, hey, this is from us. Because the person making the request was a lady from Maine. And we're like, wow, this lady from Maine is very interested in what's going on in Hammond City government. We didn't, and then I was like, oh, look at this envelope. It's from Pete Visconti's office. So, not sure why that happened, but it did, and we're going to comply with it. And I'm not thrilled, not at all. I want you to know, but I am very focused on November 5th. We have elections on November 5th. We have a great team running, and that's what I'm focused on right now. That's it. So I'm not prepared to answer any question about after November 5th, but I am focused like a laser beam on making sure we maximize voter turnout before November 5th. Okay? Thank you.
Moving to Police Department, sir. Thank you to the Hammond Police Department and all first responders. We are concerned about robberies at banks and businesses on Kennedy and 169th and overall crime in Hammond.
Thank you. Good question.
Well, very happy to report that we just broke up that bank robbery spree. They were Gary residents, very happy about that also, not from Hammond. You know, I always tell you that a lot of crime comes from outside our city. The 2 most prominent things we've had happen recently were not initiated from our city. They come over the borders. We had a dynamic duo working banks not only in Hammond but surrounding communities. They hit the Horizon Bank up in Robertsdale at 5 points. Then they went on to commit a few others before that and a couple others since. And then they came back to Hammond, which was their last mistake. They hit the bank here in Hessville. And an undercover officer happened to be in the area, a narcotics officer, and he picked up that vehicle as it left the bank, stayed on it, got other units involved, and with the help of a GPS system in the bag, we successfully apprehended with assisting units from Gary and County, both of them with the money, gun, evidence, everything in Gary, and they won't be committing these repeat crimes anymore.
Chief, could I add to that real quick? I know you still want to go. I'm going to say this stuff the chief wants to be nice about, okay? One of the gentlemen in that robbery was out on bond for murder. Murder and attempted murder, and he was out on bond. what the heck is going on in our judicial system? You have attempted murder, and you go to a judge, and it was a murder that took place in Gary, and they went before Lake County Superior Court Judge Boswell, to be exact, and she lets them out, and while they're out, they're like, we got to pay for our lawyers, obviously, so how are we going to do that? I'm going to rob some banks. So they robbed a bank in Robertsdale, and then they robbed a bank in Hessville, armed robbery, right? Scared the hell out of the employees, I'm sure. Get a gun waved in your face. This person should have never walked free. It's a travesty what's going on, and I've made it my mission. Every time we catch a bad guy, and it's some high-profile crime like it was, I'm digging up the defendant's butt so I can come out with information like this, because it's not very often they're first-time criminals. Like, oh, just graduated high school, now I'm robbing banks. They're usually hardened criminals that we've caught numerous times already, and they keep getting let back out. And I guess you have to kill somebody before they're going to keep you in jail. Thankfully for us on the bank robbery, these two gentlemen went before a federal magistrate, and they said no bail, which is what we should be doing in county. If you're facing a murder charge, you should never walk free again. So we got problems for sure. The MPD is going to keep doing their jobs, but it's not made any easier when the Lake County Superior Court judges just keep letting them out. That's what they're doing. Sorry, Chief, I didn't mean to jump in on that, but it's crazy.
It's okay. Thank you for that. That's your arena, and we appreciate you pursuing that on our behalf.
It makes it easier when I'm an attorney. It does. Yeah. By the way, the last two high-profile juvenile crimes, same thing. Slap on the wrist, get back out. One of them tried to kill a police officer with a car. All right, overnight in jail, you're out. It's crazy.
The other one we had this week, before I talk about where our crime stats are at, they're not what they seem. But I would like to tell you that we had a couple individuals come in, and they were from Illinois this time. Again, not our fine Hammond people. And they were stopped at a train. And the two elderly people got out here in Hessville, got out of their truck and went to the back of the truck to get some water. And these bad people from Illinois decide, hey, let's rob them. Let's get our gun out and rob them while they're waiting for the train. And they did. So we had 2 armed robberies there, 2 people. And there was a little girl in the car that nobody saw, 3 years old. Then they went over to 169th and Calumet because they're just driving around having a good old time in our city, and they get in an altercation there with somebody. They don't like the way they drive, and they shoot at them, and a bullet goes into the car. They leave, and they continue to drive around, and we pick them up. Someone calls and says they're back in the area. Our officers get in a pursuit into Illinois, up into Chicago, where they're from. And one of our officers is almost killed because he's getting crushed between his door, the squad, and her backing up into him. So he fires his gun while he's getting crushed and shoots her in the arm. Totally justified shooting, of course. Almost lost an officer a couple days ago. Last Saturday, we almost lost an officer here in Hammond. For nothing. Just anger, people that are mad and angry at the world and willing to make you a victim here. But we chased them down, and we caught them, and they're in jail, and we're going to be extraditing them back here because that's what our officers do. They take care of things.
And we're going to be following them when they go through the court system. So that if they're let free, I'm going to let you all know. And then we have to remember these judges. If they're going to be letting these killers free, if you try to kill a cop, you're a killer. And if they're going to let them free, we got to know who the judge is, and we're going to have to remember when that judge is facing retention, we're going to have like a scorecard. Oh, that's you that let this killer free, and then they went and robbed a bank. That's the only way it's going to change. That's my voice.
Just to follow up on, so for the crime stats, crimereports.com, but you can get it on our website. It's on the Hammond Police website, and it's on the mayor's website. You can go in there and look at our crime stats anytime. We put them up in real time, and they're the same things we give to the federal government. I happen to have them with me. We're down 1% from last year overall in crime in Hammond. That's a good statistic. Over 10 years, we're down more than that. We're down 3 or 4%. We're doing good here. We're holding our own. Considering what's on one side of us and the other and where our crime is coming from, we have a lot of technology in place. We have young, aggressive police officers. We have a mayor that supports us financially. We have enough officers on the street. We have state-of-the-art equipment, top to bottom, young, aggressive guys and gals that know how to use it, and they use it every day. You can't drive into Hammond in a stolen car on any artery without bells going off in our squad cars, and we're already turning toward you as soon as you come in our town. That's how we work. That's how crime's going down, that's how repeat crime's going down, and that's how we're holding our own when we really shouldn't be. People are amazed at what's going on in Hammond because of our geolocation here. We're holding our own when other places in the country are not, and we're very proud of that. If you had a specific question about the crime stats, whoever gave that question, you can have the copy I have. You can have it, and I'll show you exactly where we're at. I'll leave it up here for you.
My wife drives on that intersection, okay? We all do. I drive on that intersection almost daily. 173rd and Calumet, right? Oh, that 169 Calumet, I definitely drive that every day. I mean, we could be affected by crime. We live in a city, you know. So that's something to always be aware of. I promise you, we're always working every day. It's my number one priority as mayor. It's my number one job. And, you know, my critics like to say, oh, there was a murder, Mayor Tom sucks as mayor. I get that a lot. And then, oh, this horrible crime, somebody got robbed and the administration doesn't care about you. They're building bike bridges, and I hear it all. But I want you to know that the Hammond Police Department budget's over $30 million a year, which is more than we collect in property taxes. Way more than we collect in property taxes. So we get all of our property taxes. It doesn't even cover his department, much less the rest of the city. So we use gaming revenue also. We buy technology for the officers. And by the way, we also have a professional fire department, which is expensive, and full city load. So I think our priorities are in the right place. And not only we have excellent police officers with great equipment and a mayor that supports them by buying stuff, but an administration that supports the police officers. I know who the good guys are. I realize that police officers make mistakes. We see it on the news all the time. But I tell you what, I've dealt with 211 Hammond police officers for 15 years, and they're great people. And they don't want to make mistakes like that, and they want peace in our city, and they're going to do everything they can to ensure it. So it's my job to support them. I'm their boss, and I want to be a good boss, and I want to be a good example, and I think they're doing a great job. But we're never going to be satisfied with this. Anytime there's a crime, that's going to keep us going to work every day. You're never going to, you know, we're down 1%, okay, it's still too high. I think both of us would tell you that. It's still too high. I like the way we're trending, but it's still too high. Crime? Yes, ma'am.
I have a follow-up question.
Sure, no problem.
I read where some schools are now getting special high-tech radios, so in case that there's crime at their school, like a shooter, that they can immediately contact the police. Do you have anything like that in the works?
Well, we're very fortunate in Hammond that, with the exception of the elementary schools, we have police in every school. So we're on site. Hammond High, 3 officers every day. Morton, 2 to 3 officers every day. Every high school has police.
And they're off duty.
Most middle schools, they're off duty being employed by the school city of Hammond. So, like I introduced Chris as a school resource officer, he's hired in his part-time to work there as a school resource officer. Most of those guys dedicate themselves to work there most of their careers.
Nights for us then, right?
Yeah, or
So
he'll
he'll work
work
the
his
day
days
for the
off
school.
over there.
Right, gotcha.
Right. Yeah, so he can be working an off shift or just work his day off. So we're very fortunate in Hammond where other cities may have a large school system and there's a state grant to pay for one school resource officer to work that whole school district, that they pay that officer salary. Now that's a police officer that is hired, he goes to the academy, then he goes into school. In Hammond, you get guys that are out there on the streets every day at their tactical best in our schools, in Hammond schools. If something goes wrong, we're on it. You know, we had the scare at Hammond High, we were all over it.
Yeah.
Administratively, in the police-wise, City Hall was on it.
We were all over it.
You know, the next day, we had that person in custody, the next morning.
And then she was let free. She caused a bomb scare and shut down the school city of Hammond for not just Hammond High, all the schools. And we caught her, and we brought her into juvenile court, and she was out a day later. What disincentive is there to ever do that again? I mean, they're going to make her go to counseling or something like that, but that's what by the way, she was 17, real close to being an adult. But I tell you, we're just too irresponsible with the criminal defendants when they get in there. We have to be way tougher. The judges have to be way tougher. And my wife's a judge, civil judge, thank you. She doesn't have to deal with criminal cases. And if she did, I know how she'd handle it because her dad was a police officer, so.
There probably is a short answer to your question, though. Every school administrator has a radio. Our police officers that work there have our radio and theirs. They're always talking. They're always in touch. So we really don't need what you're talking about. Fortunately here, we don't need that. We have a resource available to our teachers and our students that most cities don't have the luxury
But
of
Chief,
having.
if there was something that happened in Morton High School, the school resource officer would call for backup with the rest of the on-duty police officers.
Happens, that's exactly how it works.
Right. And you have 24 officers on the street at all times, right?
At least.
Right.
At least.
But like on Christmas morning, we have 24 officers on the street?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
24 officers at all times, 7 days a week, on Christmas morning, Thanksgiving night. So, I mean, we have great manpower on the streets. So, thank you, ma'am, for the question. Crime. Whoever the mayor is 30 years from now, 20 years from now, they're going to be answering these types of questions, and they're going to tell you this is a war. We're not going to lose. We're going to keep fighting. We have to. We have no choice. You know, it's like being in a war, and you got to put the armies in the field or else give up, and we're not going to give up. We're going to win. We got better equipment. We got stronger people. We're going to win, but what's that?
Here's
Oh,
one
wait.
about crime.
Oh,
Here.
hi. Hi, ma'am.
Okay, other than obeying the law, what can we do to help the police? Because it really is heartrending to me to see so many policemen losing their lives and not appreciated for the hard work they do, putting their lives out there every
Yes,
day.
ma'am.
So what can the average citizen do? Because when I see a policeman pull somebody over and he's by himself, it's my instinct to just park somewhere down, keep an eye on the situation. If a guy pulls
You're
out
sweet.
a gun or whatever to make a phone call or do whatever, what can we do to help
They're
the
sweet
police?
by saying that, and I appreciate it. And I tell you what I do in my position is I see some fellow elected officials that, especially Democrats, that say, we're going to demonize the police. You see it. And they feel like maybe they're getting more politically powerful by disrespecting police officers, and I do not take that approach. I take sort of a different approach. I praise the police officers, and my initial instinct is to support the police officer and try to change the narrative coming from elected officials. And I think you, with that question, could do the same thing, is change the narrative. You know, there's a lot of hate out there in the world, especially on social media, and I think the more you tell a police officer, thank you for what you do, and I buy lunch or breakfast whenever I see the officers and just let them know, we love you. You guys are doing great. Thank you for keeping our city safe. I know the officers love hearing that.
I think that's very important. What you just did, I wish my officers that were up front here were still here for, because that's what they don't get back. You know, they go home just like you and they watch the news and they see all the bad stuff, or maybe there is an officer that somewhere out there that did do something wrong and they get lumped in to that, and it's not fair.
Yeah.
Because it's such a small percentage, but it's, you know, the newspaper makes you believe it's every officer out there. I could tell you in 36 years, it just isn't happening. Have I seen bad guys? Yeah. But the very vast majority of police officers are honest and never, ever would do anything wrong intentionally. You know, and even if we get caught up in an honest mistake, sometimes that's demonized. And it just sells. You know, you don't hear about the awards, life-saving awards on the news that I just gave out. That's not news. That's fluffy and happy. You know, that won't hold your attention for 2 minutes if you're watching Fox News. They want to tell you about the officer that misstepped and let you believe that that's the narrative for police officers across the country, and it's absolutely not true. But thank you for voicing your opinion. That's what matters.
You know what I think helped a lot? I've been married 15 years, and about 2/3 of it, we did it without this, and then a few years back, we bought the vest, the body cams for the officers, and I think first off, it's eliminated a lot of complaints against police officers, because whenever they're interacting with the public, it's all videoed and it's all taped. So this happens often. Your officer was rude to me. Your officer said something they shouldn't have said, and they were talking down to me, and they were rude to me, and then they file a complaint. And back in the old days when they didn't have body cams, it would be that person's word against the officer. Of course, the officer says, that's crazy. I never said any such thing, right? And then we're like, well, who's lying and who's telling the truth? Now we got the body cams. And the officers are under, orders, general order. Every time they're interacting with the public, it's got to be taped. And so I think that helps a lot, because going back to what the chief said, there's bad apples in every group. I'm an attorney. I've seen bad apples. Quite a few, actually. Elected officials, teachers, accountants. There's bad apples in every group, right? So let's say we have a bad apple. We had a bad apple working for us in Hammond PD. Let's say this person's rude when they go out and arrest people. Now they know that they're carrying a camera around with them. So even if you're rude, you know you're being tape recorded, I think you might temper your behavior knowing that you got a camera on.
Mayor, one
Yes,
quick
ma'am.
thing too, that
Sure.
maybe something that the residents can do that would be safe for them to assist the police officers with the Ring program that we did by signing up, even if you don't have Ring, signing up for the neighborhood
Yeah.
as app for that, allowing the police officers to have access to your cameras if there's a crime committed in your neighborhood, and cooperating with them if something were to happen near you.
Cool, thank you. All right, you ready, Donna?
Yes, Chief, one more police matter. Can a vehicle parked in a residential garage be cited for violations?
Inside a closed residential garage?
Doesn't say that.
How about this? I'll make it. How about on the driveway, on private property?
If a vehicle is on private property visible from the street or the alley, and it is broken down in some manner or leaking fluids, which would be a hazardous material, then the city or the police department could get involved in citing that vehicle, yes.
So you can walk on a driveway? If
Yeah,
it's in a
yes.
garage, different matter, right?
If it's
Especially
in-
for police officers.
For police officers, it's a very different matter.
What about you, Jaime? Do you ever walk into a garage? Like,
Not unannounced.
yeah, no kidding, right?
Because I don't want to get shot.
Yeah.
So we typically try to get a hold of the owner. If it's in a garage that, it's out of sight, we don't see a problem with it. If it is broken down, leaking fluids, as the chief said, then we do ask them to, fix it, move it, do something.
Cool. Thank you. Any follow-up to that? All right.
Economic Development, Mayor. What is the new business coming in on Columbia at the site of the old Stardust Bowling Alley?
Your
I'll let Ann
favorite,
answer
Mayor.
this question.
We have Cube Smart Storage. It's a self-storage facility, climate-controlled. They took over the building last year. It is a use that is compliant in that zoning, but they have taken a building that has sat vacant for a few years, I believe, and has already raised the roof 8 feet to make a second story. And we're pretty excited. We're putting in some very strong parameters on zoning and landscaping, so it's going to look good, Mayor.
All right. Brian's in charge of that. We all good on that, Brian? Yeah? A lot of bushes and trees and... This is the city planner and our census coordinator.
Yeah, when the Board of Zoning Appeals looked at the project with a couple of variances, and yes, we looked very carefully at the landscaping, so it will, as Ann indicated, it will look really good.
Thank you. Why don't you talk a little census while you're here?
I was going to say, can I talk about
Yeah,
the census?
please. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
This is my second census with Brian.
This is my fourth.
Yeah, wow.
And my last.
Come on.
April 1st, 2020 is officially Census Day. The census is a very important thing we have to do. The census is officially done every 10 years with the intent of counting everybody who lives within our entire country. The thing that's going to be different this year that I think a lot of people may have some adjustment factors. Typically in years past, everybody would be mailed an actual application or a form to fill out. The census this year is going to mail out postcards. What the postcard is going to say is that if you want a form, you contact them and they'll send you the actual hard form, or you have the option of going online and filling out the information that way. So there might be a bit of a learning curve in that, and it is unusual for everybody not to have a form. But with the way our technology is going, the census has decided that this is the direction that they wanted to go. So the postcards will start to be mailed out in early March of next year. Try and look for that postcard and hope it doesn't look like junk mail, because it's a very important effort that we count all the people in our country.
Thanks. Yeah, that's super important for all of us. We want to have a good number. Last census, Hammond became Lake County's, Northwest Indiana's largest city, and we don't want to lose. So make sure, so that's coming out on April Fool's Day?
That's officially, yes, Census Day.
Okay. That's a funny day. All right, let's go.
Mayor, is the hockey arena a city business venture or a private enterprise?
Cool. I have Africa. Grab the microphone on this. This is Africa Tarver. She's the Hammond's appointee to the Regional Development Authority, and she's the head of planning and development.
The ice rink, are also known as Project Ice Cube, or I think it's Project Ice Cube, but it is a private development. The city is helping with it. We recognize the value to the city of Hammond, but it is a private developer does own the property.
We did incentive for it, though, right?
We did, and actually I have it here
Yeah.
because I have all of them down. Actually,
$2 million.
it was a $7.5 million investment. I think we did $4 million on it.
No, we didn't do that much. Huh? Yeah, it was two.
Two.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we participated with them through TIF district, much like we did the firehouse, hotels, stuff like that. But yeah, we're part of it, but it's a private venture, so. Any follow-up on that? I know recently I talked to Chancellor Keon, Purdue Northwest Chancellor. He informed me that they have a full-time hockey coach at Purdue. They're going to get into intramural hockey. Purdue Northwest is going to have a hockey team, which is super cool. Obviously, they need this to be done before that happens, but it's moving a little slower than I wished. If we were in charge of it, it would have probably been done already, but, you know, these gentlemen are doing it the right way. There's going to be also a Sky Zone type
It is. They'll have 2 sheets of ice, and they'll also have like a jump zone that's similar to Sky Zone.
Right.
So we're really excited about it. It's something new to the area. We're going to bring people to the area, so we're very, very excited about it.
Yep. Cool. All right. Any other follow-ups on that? Yes, sir.
Yeah, follow up on the new ice rink.
Yes, sir.
Driving into there.
Yeah.
Kennedy Avenue, is there going to be another entranceway, perhaps, or something done to facilitate?
Do you live in the neighborhood right across the
coming
street?
in and out? Pardon me?
Do you live in the neighborhood right across the street?
No.
Well, I can tell you that there's concern expressed from the neighbors that live across the street about the traffic that leaves the ice rink. Is it going to go through their neighborhood to get to 174th, to come out that way? And we have to make sure that doesn't happen. I know that the city engineer and I are going through plans right now to make sure that when the ice rink opens, this traffic calming device will be in place. I imagine it's going to be something like we did on State Line that literally prevents traffic that leaves the ice rink from getting into the neighborhood. They'll have to take the same way out that they took in. We have to do that to protect the neighborhood, and they're so close to each other. It's absolutely imperative that that's done, and it won't be open. That will not be open until we're done with the traffic device. I made that clear with my department heads. And I promised the neighbor that lives right across the street, more importantly. And I know who she is, and she knows who I am, and if I don't follow through with my word, she'll be at Mayor's Night Out following me around, and I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. So, okay? Absolutely important. But I think it's exciting to see commercial and Dowling Park take off, but we have to protect the neighborhoods. It's number one on my list, sir, I promise, okay? Dean, could you grab the microphone? We've talked about this,
Mayor.
right?
Yes. About probably 6 months ago, we did a traffic study where we measured some car activity back there. And we looked at limited success with the ice rink and jump zone to if it was widely successful, what would we do? So we have a plan to escalate traffic control in that area, and as the mayor said, the first step is really to kind of disconnect the Ice Cube traffic from the neighborhood.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Hi. Hi, Clerk Collick.
Yeah, Mayor. Since the land is privately owned and the business is privately owned, does that mean it's all taxable now?
It's all part of the TIF district, though, yeah. But it's taxable because we didn't give them an abatement. But what happens is, you know, when we created the TIF district, it was when all of River Park was knocked down. Dowling Park wasn't even built out at that time. So the TIF district itself really had no increment. It wasn't generating much property tax. So all the new buildings that come into that district are helping to pay for the debt that we used to bring in those businesses, you know? So yes, it's on a tax roll, but it's not really helping the city coffers paying for the police department. It's helping cover the debt in that TIF district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, we actually are using it, the TIF districts, in a creative way in this year's budget. So even though it doesn't directly go to fund the Police Department, for instance, we were using TIF dollars to build Station 8
Yeah.
here in Hessville. So that's a cost that we would normally have funded through general fund dollars, public safety dollars, that we were able to use through the TIF district. We also did some creative TIF financing this year, thanks to your idea with the College Bound program about using the 15% allowed from the annual increment generated from all of the TIFs in total to go towards a workforce training or college preparation program. So we've partnered with Purdue, and so those dollars are now going to go to support the College Bound program, freeing up funds in the general fund for things like public safety and public works.
I was reading I read a statewide summary of all the newspapers, and I read about the city of Columbus using TIF revenue to help finance an education program. I said, what? We could do that? So we hired a lawyer and looked, and they said, yeah, you could use 15% of your total TIF revenue towards a program like College Bound. That saved us $1 million a year to do that. And it's coming out of a TIF district and gives us the ability, the district council people, gives them more money so that they can go out and get more road work done, get more lighting projects done, get more park improvements done. I think it was real smart. So anyway, appreciate you bringing that up, Heather, and thank you for the question. Clerk Golick. Any other questions on this? Bonnie, you thinking about it? You did the half raise. You were like, I'm going to ask a tough one. I don't know what you think. All right, let's do it.
Mayor, in Gibson Park, there are no lights in the parking lot. It's very dark.
In which park? Edison?
Gibson.
Gibson, okay, yeah.
Can we turn the street light in Gibson Park by the parking lot 180 degrees to face into the parking lot? I discussed this with the gentleman. He did say he thinks it's a NIPSCO light, but he wondered if the city could be involved and help out with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something we can take a look at and see the position of those particular lights up there. It might be adding one as well, but there might be some options that we can look at and see.
Right. And
that is a new lot in that area there, in the southwest corner of the park there.
And technically, you're not supposed to be in parks at nighttime, right?
That is true. It is nice to usually get the spill of the light for security purposes, but
Right.
you're right. The parks do close at dusk, so we don't want to encourage that. We don't want to have people parking cars there overnight. That's also against city ordinance. So we don't want to have it too bright, but bright enough where police driving by, if there is someone in there, they can chase them out or enforce as necessary.
When we first opened the new Edison Park in the 4th District, I drove by and I was just like, I heard that the kids were playing there after hours, and I went there and it was cold. I want to say it was about a year ago. It was like, when did we open that? Was it? It was November? Yeah. So super cold at night in November, right? And I went after we opened it, and I drove by, and we have 2 outdoor turf soccer fields there, and there was 50 kids playing. It had to be 30 degrees outside, and it was like 9 o'clock at night, so it was pitch dark. And I didn't call the cops or anything because I was like, wow, it's so neat to see these kids playing in this park at night, even though they weren't supposed to be. But technically, you're not supposed to play in parks after the sun goes down. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was my question.
Uh-huh.
So if there's anything I can do, like if you need that NIPSCO poll number, I'd be willing to get that for you and call your office and let you know what it is. Because you have the street lamps around the park, and this is a NIPSCO light, and it's really doing nothing right now. And if you turned it into the parking lot, because that parking lot it's basically black at night.
Right.
And for crime reasons, why make a rendezvous point that's pitch black?
Yes, sir.
For, the
Thank
bad
you.
guys, right?
I appreciate it. And I'm going to point something out also. I find myself saying this often on the road. This app, Hammond 311, is amazing for people like yourselves. I hate to stereotype, but if you're at this meeting right now, you're the type of person that would love this app, okay? Hammond 311 gets you directly where you need to be. So let's say you took a picture of that NIPSCO poll, and then you put it in and you wanted to make a complaint about that. It would literally those go to you, right? The NIPSCO poll complaints? The engineer?
They either come to me, or I think they also go to Public Works.
Public Works?
Yeah.
But they would literally shoot to the person that's responsible for it. Avoiding red tape, people like myself, what happened in the old days when people would say, I'm calling the mayor. And then you leave a message, and sometimes I don't get back to the message for a day or two. And then I'm like, dang, I had this message on my desk, and I forward it to the other department, and maybe that other department's busy, and they don't get to it for a day or two, and you're sitting there for 5 days like, I called the city yesterday on this, and they're just, now we have these apps where you could go, let's say you have a graffiti issue. You take a picture of the graffiti, and you put in the complaint, graffiti removed, we need it removed. You take a picture of it. It knows exactly where in the city that graffiti is. Right? What's that called, Chris? GeoChip or?
Geolocating.
Geolocating? I was going to say
GPS.
GeoChip. GPS?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to say, you could do it way better than I can. I don't know why I'm trying.
You're doing a great job, though.
Thank you.
So yeah, we
This
use
is
it-
Chris Campbell, Department Head for IT.
How you doing? So we use the GPS from the phone to locate where the problem is. So if you're at the location, you really don't need to know the address of it because your phone's going to pick it up. If you want to report it later, you can manually address the address and fix that. And it's a really great app. It's free. It's available in the Android market or on your iOS device.
Who's here
And
from Public Works?
like the mayor said, it does cut through the red tape. You don't have to worry about who am I supposed to contact for this particular issue. You find it in our pre-approved list, you pick it, and it goes to the right department. And usually you're notified that we got the report. You'll be notified what we're doing with it, and when we close the issue, you will also be notified.
Hey, Joe, could you grab a microphone real quick? This is Joe Medwitz. He's a resident of Hessville, and he's your Public Works supervisor. Joey, I know you know the answer to this because we both heard Gary say this a million times, okay? What happens actually, if I put in a C-click fix complaint, let's say I need something removed from my alley or something, right? How does that process when it comes to Public Works?
It'll come up to our front office, to the girls up front. They will make a ticket out, and then it will be distributed to the right supervisor and be taken care of usually that day or the following.
So if I did it like on a Wednesday night after work, it'd probably be done Thursday?
It'll be done Thursday or Friday morning.
Right, and then now think about the same complaint gets called into the mayor's office, and maybe I'm out that afternoon doing hard work at the mayor's office, and then Thursday I get in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got this message and I got to forward it to Gary, and then it goes over to Gary and Gary's off, that day or something, and then, comes around to the following Monday when we're finally doing your job. You have a way to do it very quickly. Hammond 311, it's on your cell phone, it's free to download, it's used thousands of times. How many complaints do we get through Hammond 311?
Thousands a month.
Thousands a month. Dean, do you want to say something?
If you don't mind, Mayor, I use the 311 app a lot, but I would also state that NIPSCO does have a website. It's Streetlight Outage Report. You can directly contact or pull up their website and select that pole that has a light on it, and it'll report directly to NIPSCO. I would still urge you, if you'd like, to use the 311 app. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. There you go. Thank you for the question, sir. All
Moving
right.
to code enforcement, Mayor.
All right. Jaime, it's your turn. You're on the line.
It's coming, Heim. I have a friend who lives in the 6700 block of Alexander, and his block doesn't look as nice as my block. The road, the curbs, and the sidewalks are all in poor condition. I feel bad for him. He pays the same taxes, and yet he doesn't seem to receive the same quality of living. What can the city do to improve the 6700 block of Alexander?
Well, we go down every block, we take a look at every house, we cite for things that we feel that need to be cited. I don't know this address, obviously. He might have been cited before. We've come across many situations where someone's on a fixed income, someone is older by themselves. We try to work with them as much as we can to reach compliance. Our number one goal is to have all of our neighborhoods look as great as possible. Sometimes it's harder, as I said before, depending on a person's situation. And sometimes, it has to be drawn out through the court system. But ultimately, we have the same goal for every house in the city.
Thank you. Hi, sir. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Pretty good. I really didn't want to speak this evening.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Jaime, you kind of missed the boat on that one. It was about the whole block, not about an individual address.
Gotcha.
The friend of mine who lives on that block, right, he brought it to my attention that, the street, the curbs,
You're talking
sidewalk,
over by Strack Van Til over there?
sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that, the condition of city-owned property
Right.
is what's in poor condition.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah, at that point, I would revert, talk to your councilman. Councilman speaks with the engineer.
Right.
And the engineer can speak more on that.
Jaime's like, I'm out. Not my department. You're saying in general, 6700 block of Alexander?
Seems to be.
I'm trying to
seems
picture
be-
this.
What's that?
Is Alexander, is it on the west side of the bridge or on the east side of the bridge?
It's north of the tracks.
Mayor,
north
that'd be
of Martha.
Right.
Martha and Alexander.
Okay.
There you go.
Gotcha.
Correct?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, Martha and Alexander. All right. Thanks, Chris. I'll take a look at it.
So Mayor, if I
Yeah, please,
could,
Engineer.
so well before I started in my role, we did look at that roadway. It's a very expensive fix over there because of the sewer, the sewer work that has to be done. It's a complete reconstruction. I don't remember off the top of my head what the value was, but because the funding for council district projects has been decreasing over the last number of years, it's been harder for the councilmen to support a complete reconstruction. We have really only been doing about one a year,
Right.
and that's one total
Right.
in all of the 6 districts. So it's a complicated road reconstruction section. It's only a block long. Those are generally about $1 million worth of work to fix.
But we will follow it up, Chris. I appreciate the question. Thanks. Donna?
Okay, Mayor, the next question is, when there are rental properties covered by Section 8, who is responsible for the exterior condition of the property?
Carmen, you here? Oh, Carmen's not here.
Jaime is.
Jaime.
I bet you do. The owner of the house is always ultimately responsible for the home itself. If whoever posted that question, if there's a certain address you want to give me at the end of the meeting, I'll be right here.
And then, so like, even though I'm a renter, somebody has to mow the lawn. I mean, and if nobody mows the lawn, it's ultimately the landlord that's responsible.
Right, exactly. And every lease is different. Sometimes in the lease, the renter is responsible for the lawn. Sometimes they're not. It just depends on the lease. So someone's cutting that grass, or we are.
And when we cut it, it's expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive. So it's in their best interest to cut it.
Okay, thanks, Jaime.
I have seen railroad signs in Munster and Griffith indicating no horn. Why is Hammond without this sign?
Good question. We've gone through this issue. It's really intersection by intersection. Trains is a huge topic in itself. It's frustrating. There's not much we could do. Representative Carolyn Jackson, who's in here, floated a bill last year in the Indiana State House to try to codify it so that if a train blocked a crossing for more than 10 minutes, that a municipality like Hammond, the police department could ticket that train that blocks a crossing for greater than 10 minutes. And she floated a bill. We were so happy and proud of her, and it didn't even get a hearing. Right, Representative? Good, and I appreciate it. But unfortunately, what we've learned is the Indiana Supreme Court came out and said you can't even ticket them anymore. Even though they weren't paying the tickets, you can't even do it anymore, Chief. It's against the law. And the state government won't hear our cases, and even if they did, we'd probably get ruled down by the federal preemption issues. The only person that could take care of this, the only people that could take care of this is Congress. There are other options going through the Surface Transportation Board. I was the chairman of a committee, the Rail Task Force, and I learned a lot about this. We could go through something called the Surface Transportation Board and file a complaint for trains always stopping traffic in Hessville on a daily basis. And if we did that, we would be right behind the city of Chicago that filed a similar complaint 10 years ago, and they have done nothing on that complaint. City of Chicago. So what makes us think if we went to the Surface Transportation Board, we'd be treated any better in Northwest Indiana? So basically, we have no options locally. We have no options in the state, even though we try. The only people that could take care of this problem are the Congress people and the senators passing a law that makes it illegal for a train to block an intersection for more than 10 minutes. Until that day comes, we're going to be dealing with this issue. And we're going to have to figure out, and now this question in particular is about a quiet zone. And that is possible, but you have to go through, your intersection has to meet certain parameters. And it's not cheap, by the way. We have a lot of rail crossings in Hammond. Each rail crossing, Dean, do you remember what the cost was? We looked at the one right over by the Renaissance. I know that one
Right.
was really expensive.
Typical, a quiet zone rail crossing is going to be about $500,000 for the setup. When we looked at the one by the Renaissance, it was going to be 1.2 million to fix that. We were going to have to close Willow Court, which would have upset the Baptist church and how they would access to and from the church on Sundays particularly. And there was a significant amount of right-of-way acquisition in that area. So it's really a case-by-case, and it's quite expensive to try to capture quiet zone.
In Griffith, they have the trains that go through neighborhoods, and they do them at those intersections. I get that. The train is real close, and it's not that it's not close in Hessville, and we can do it. It's just, it's a process, you know, and I'm not making excuses. We haven't done it yet. It's something perhaps we should look into. I know Whiting went through it. Up in, right by the Mascot Hall of Fame, they have a quiet crossing zone there as well. It's possible to do this, it's just expensive.
Well, Mayor, we have over 50 crossings, level crossings in Hammond to do that, and it's just.
I could do some
it's
quick
pretty
math and say
cost
that's over
prohibitive.
$25 million citywide. And then, you know, I'm not here to bash, but we were told, I'm not going to even say who said it because it'll get controversial, and I don't feel like getting controversial, but during the rail crossing task force, it was pointed out to me by a certain elected official that we build a lot of bridges in Northwest Indiana. That's the answer. And we're going, okay, we built a bridge in Hammond, you know, to get us over the railroad tracks downtown. It's great that we're building another bridge in Hessville, and it's going to get us over, eventually, once it's built, it's going to get us around the stop crossing we have here. And then we did some research. How many at-grade crossings do we have in Northwest Indiana? So if we're going to build bridges over every crossing, how many bridges do we have to build? Hundreds. 880. And each bridge is going to run you $5 million. Do some quick math. Yeah, we're going to need Donald Trump's help if that's going to happen. So it's a major problem. And instead of us spending billions of dollars to get over the problem, I wish Congress would just do their job and pass a law that says, you rail companies have to invest so that you're not blocking these intersections. But there's no incentive for them not to block your intersections. There's no incentive. They don't care. They don't care. They'll go get a sandwich. Screw you, Hammond. Doesn't matter. You can't touch us. You can't touch us. State can't touch us. We bought off the Congress, so it's all good, right? It's a problem. And we are experiencing it worse than anybody because of where we live. It's a major problem. It's frustrating for your mayor. I like to be able to tell you we have an answer, and that's the answer. Sorry, Sharon. How you doing, sir?
I agree with you. One thing to be aware of in Hessville is that if you're in the right location in Hessville, you can hear the train go through over 12 intersections because it goes through diagonally. And so that's 6 blasts per intersection times 12. You can hear it going all the way through the town.
Yes, sir.
So that's, I don't know, I think it's 30 some blasts that you hear.
I'm sorry. It's horrible. I will look into this issue again. I apologize. I've been mayor 15 years, and there's still tons of work to do. It just keeps me going to work every day. There's still work to do. And I'm frustrated with the train situation. And even if we made a quiet zone, that doesn't mean they're not going to block your intersection, which is another frustration. I've been focused on the blocked trains, and we could quiet them down. It will take investment and time, but we could do that. I appreciate your question. It's good to remind me, because sometimes you get lost. There's so many things going on. Dean, could you do me a favor real quick? Could you talk about the bridge project, the one I call Governor Parkway?
I'm thrilled, Mayor.
Please.
This is really.
This is good news for Hessville.
You know.
Not very often the state government steps up and gives us money locally. I want to thank Representative Jackson for helping us secure the funds for this. Dean, could you talk about the project?
Sure. So I'm very happy because it's probably the biggest project I've secured funding with the mayor's help through. It's a $10 million railroad grade separation project, and it was really unique in how we thought this out. The city owns about 2/3 of the land already through the Redevelopment Commission. So, and Purdue University owns about 25%. So there's just a little bit of property acquisition that we need from a resident and a half, actually, part of a backyard. So basically what we've done is we're taking out the parish level crossing and creating a new crossing over the Norfolk Southern tracks east of Parish. So Parish, now if you live at Parish View, if you live in Parish View, when you get to the tracks, it'll be stopped on that side, similarly from the north. So that crossing will be closed, and the horns won't blow at that crossing. So picture yourself at 169th and Parish heading south by the water tower. You get about past the UPS entrance on your right, the road will start to curve to your left towards the east, and it'll head east for couple hundred yards, and then it'll start to turn south, and there'll be a roadway that goes directly east down 171st to tie into Grand. But if you were to continue south, the road will start to raise up over the Norfolk Southern tracks and cross and drop down just about 172nd, and then end up at 173rd, just east of Parish, is what the plan is. And so it's mostly funded by the state. Hammond has to come up with 20% of the investment. We're looking at construction in 2022. Its federal process takes a couple of years to work our way through. And the railroads are helping about $500,000 in terms of us shutting down a railroad crossing, their participation in that. And you know, it's a wonderful project, and hopefully it'll forever help Hessville in not having to wait for trains in that area.
It'll help with the way to stop trains, and it'll help a little bit with your problem, sir, because they won't have to blow their horn going through that intersection.
Is the road going to go through the woods?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The last bit of woods in Hessville.
I know.
Well, we're looking at an area that we could potentially create some residential development, which Hammond. Yeah, so
we have to do it in Swale and Gibson Woods.
yeah, Gibson Woods and
I heard about the
Shirley
Dude as
Hines
well.
property. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, any other questions about trains?
How high will this overpass be?
So that's dictated by the Railway Association, and it has to be 23-foot clear for the trains to go underneath. So the approach height will put us somewhere in the neighborhood of 28 feet higher than the existing ground at that location.
Interesting.
Okay.
There'll be bike lanes, sidewalks.
Thank you. Questions? That's good news. Unfortunately, it doesn't start till 2022. Federal projects are slow, but it's a great project. It's coming. It's already funded. So I'm sorry we have to wait 2 more years, but it'll be well worth it once it's built. All right, let's move on. Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Year.
About a year.
I learned a lot about trains over the last year, and it's a tough situation. Very, very. Yes, sir.
Yep. Dean, will that provide for a pedestrian walkover as well? For example, because the kids that live on the other side keep cutting under the trains and et cetera, et cetera. So will there be a walkway where now they can walk over the rails rather than through the trains?
Yeah, there's bike paths and sidewalks for the overpass at that location. It's still kind of a long way to go, particularly if you're on Grand, trying to get to Scott Middle School. But that will be available. I know Mayor and Councilman Rakos have asked me to look into some other options to kind of support that.
We want to get you to Morton High School, obviously, which is why we call it Governor Parkway. But yeah, this is helping the parents that are waiting there to get to Scott Middle School. It gives them a way around and over so that they can get to Scott Middle School without resorting to having their kids get out of the car and go through the train. So, all right, thank you.
There's a homeowner at the 6500 block of Nevada that's been pumping his water into the alley and on 165th Street for a year and a half in violation of Ordinance 53.071. Code enforcement has done nothing about it.
Jaime. Everybody looks at Jaime. What?
I'm popular today. We are looking at different options.
You know about this, I take it.
We definitely do know about it. I reached out to that homeowner.
I know about it too, for the record. So this person that's making the complaint is very persistent, which is what you have to be if you want to get stuff done, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know about this, like, then obviously this has been.
Right.
about.
I did reach out to that homeowner. I left him a message when I called him last. This was a few months ago. There are some options that we are talking with the sanitary district about as far as what this gentleman can do at his house. We know that he has already put some money into trying to fix the issue. But as I said, without getting into any more information, we are aware, we are trying to definitely fix this issue as soon as possible.
Thank you. All right.
Mayor, the garbage truck that services my block, which is 3100 163rd Place, has a terrible leak and it's leaving nasty puddles of garbage everywhere after pickup. Can you help?
I've been mayor a long time, and this is a common complaint, especially in the summer, okay? What happens is they're drained to leak like that, and the leak that they make is putrid. It's worse than a skunk. Joey, help me out here. I'm getting to the end of my expertise, but this is a problem, especially in the summertime when the windows are open. You get this complaint a lot, Joey?
Yes, and especially when we get heavy rains.
Right.
Is when it's bad. In the back of the garbage truck, there are holes with screens on them, and that's what it is actually supposed to do.
Right. But when it comes out, whoo.
It is bad.
Right.
But if they do have complaints, whatever, this and that, we have on several occasions had them call in, and we will send a sweeper by and do what we can for them.
Right.
But other than that, there is really nothing else we could do for
We could send a fire truck out there and just hose it down.
You could do that too. That would be a great idea.
Smitty, what do you think? Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, other than that, usually when it happens is when we do have a heavy rain.
Yeah, and it stinks, and we get tons of complaints about this in the summertime.
Right.
And it's supposed to leak like that, and it happens in my alley just like it happens in your alley, and you know when it happens. So, but these, I want to point out, these trucks have to hit every house in Hammond, 30,000 different stops every five days. So 6,000 houses a day they're doing, and they're in a hurry. And, if there's ever a mistake that they didn't take care of, please call them, and one of the foremen will come by and make sure that we get it taken care of. But I can tell you, these guys are moving when they're doing that job, and it's a tough job. They're out there in the 100-degree heat, and they're out there in the 0-degree cold. It's a tough job, but I appreciate what they do, and I appreciate the complaint also, because we have to follow this up when it happens. But anybody want to follow that up? That's a common complaint. That's not an accidental leak. It's on purpose. It was designed that way. Yes, sir.
I'll follow it up.
Sure.
You mentioned sweeping, so I see street sweeper coming through, there's street sweepers coming through Hammond. Can they go through these paved alleys and perhaps clean it up? Because it happens on a weekly basis every time they pick up the garbage. There's puddles.
So, yeah, if you do have a complaint about it, you can call in and we will send a sweeper through. Yes, we will.
How many miles of alley do we have in our city, Joe? Do you know? Dean, you probably know that, right?
So we have
30 miles?
280 in roadways. We're very close to that in alleys.
Oh, really? It's almost.
They're almost the same, yeah.
So if we told Joe and the crew, hey, you guys got to do this, we'd probably never get it done. 280 miles of roads that we're responsible for when it snows, potholes, stuff like that, sweeping. And then if we added alleys to that. But if there's a problem, sir, please call. I mean, Joe works in the 6th District. That's what he does. You're saying it's every.
Myself, but it was just annoying. I thought
I know.
it was just a leaking truck.
Ugh.
Tell me
They smell.
that's the way it is.
It is. I mean, in the back of the trucks, there are screens back there, holes for that to drain, and actually, if you plug those holes up, you're going to have a bigger problem. Now, where are they going to pack the garbage? That would be a big problem.
It'll be like a soup, garbage soup. Yeah, thank you, sir. Johnny Perez back there. How's it going, Johnny? You taught me that a long time ago about the smell. I'm like,
Mayor, I get the same problem every week, but what I do when I come home after work, I use my water hose.
yeah,
Because obviously the sweeper in the alleys, like Dean just mentioned to us, it's about 280 miles. We'll never catch up
Right.
with them. But if you have a complaint, please call our office.
Cool.
Yes, absolutely. Get the hose out.
All right, thank you. All right, how many questions we have left, Donna?
We have completed the written questions.
Whoa, that's outstanding. All right, I'm going to do announcements. I'm going to start off. If you guys have announcements in your department, please think of them now. I have one, though. October 24th, Thursday, October 24th, 6:30 at the Sportsplex Soccer area. We are having a public meeting in regards to recycling. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of recycling with an expert panel that are there to answer your questions. They have educational videos, and they're going to have giveaways. All ages are welcome to attend. It's the Recycling Summit. We're doing it to get better at recycling. We spend $1 million a year to recycle in Hammond, and we could do better as far as the number of, the percentage of recycling that we put into our blue bin that actually gets recycled could be better. And we're trying to get better. That's why right now Public Works is going around to every bin in the city, 30,000 of them, and putting a sticker on every bin that shows you the proper way to recycle. Anybody get them on their bins yet? You know, nice. We have to go around to every bin in the city and put it on and make sure it's nice. But it's really easy to explain sticker that says, don't recycle this, you can do this, answers a lot of common questions. So you'll see that going on. We got the Educational Summit coming up. We're going to put it on Go Hammond TV so that you can watch it over and over again. And we want your kids there so that the kids will learn how to do it and they can teach the parents how to do it also. So thank you, Chris. That's mine. Anybody else have any coming up? Hi, Awana. How's it going? Awana's in charge of community development. How you doing, Awana? You got a big event coming up, huh?
Yes. It's the 33rd Annual Volunteer Awards Ceremony. The breakfast is going to take place on October the 24th as well at the Dynasty, 8 o'clock a.m. We'll be honoring outstanding volunteers in our city. Everyone is definitely welcome to come out. Also, on November the 3rd, from 8 to 5 at the Dynasty, the second annual Visual, Dental, and Medical Clinic will take place. It's free of charge for all ages. The city, as well as the Seventh-day Adventist churches, are sponsoring the event. So please come out to all the events that's going to be spoken on today.
Thank you, Awana. Hey, by the way, a couple weeks ago, we had torrential downpours in our city. I want to say 8 inches. Is it 8 inches?
Yep, 6.
6 inches? All right, I exaggerate.
It was 7.5 in Hessville. Yeah.
7.5 in Hessville? He's telling me.
They call that 8.
I call it 8 all day. Jack's calling it 6. But anyway, we had a lot of rain.
6 at the district.
Huh?
6 at the district.
6 at the district.
7.5 in Hessville.
Okay. How many basement backups did we have in the city, Jack?
Only 2 that were reported.
Only 2 that were reported. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I think it goes to all the work that we've done over the years with our gaming revenue and reinvesting in the infrastructure of our city. That was a bad storm. I was in Crown Point in my dad's house during that storm. They got nailed in Crown Point. It was like a washing machine. I couldn't believe how bad it was. And we were all up all night, basically. You know, when stuff like that happens, you know, sanitary was, they have everybody working. They have every pump, you know, going max. I just want to say thanks to the Hammond Sanitary District and the Jack's Department, the Hammond Sewage Department. I'm doing a great job during that storm. Congratulations, guys. Street Department, yes, of course. Fire and police are working all night. Yeah, Street Department closing Northcott. Fire Department working all night. Like, everybody was working hard. Hi, Clerk Golick.
One last thing, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
With Halloween coming up and trick-or-treating, I'd like to commend you, the police department, and the city workers last year who rode around during those hours to make it safe for all the kids and the citizens. Will that be continued this year?
Yes, sir. Thank you for
Thank you
bringing that
very
up.
much.
And I actually have a note here to remind everybody about the Halloween hours. We do it traditional, the right way in Hammond. There's some communities that do it the day before, on the Saturday before. We're old school in Hammond. We do it 5 to 7 p.m. on Halloween, rain or shine. And if it rains and they can't trick or treat that day, just like when we were kids, maybe next year, right? We do trick or treat on October 31st, rain or shine. So get out there, wear your warm clothes, and trick or treat, because that's the only day we do it, okay? Any other announcements? I want to thank everybody for coming to Mayor's Night. These are great forums. I love them every time we have them. I want to thank my department heads. You don't get paid any extra to be here until 8 o'clock at night. So thank you all. Also to Greg Easton, the principal of Martin High School. Thank you very much, Mr. Easton.
Election day?
What's that?
Early voting?
Oh, yeah, don't forget, early voting is taking place. We mentioned that at the beginning. You can vote right now. Election day is November 5th. Thank you all very much. Have a nice evening. Be careful going home.